Hello and welcome to this edition of Fresh Start. Today I'm joined by the lovely Suzanne Kingston, who some of you may remember spoke to us a little while ago about arbitration. And Suzanne has kindly agreed to come back and talk to us again, this time about mediation and in particular hybrid mediation, which I'm really excited to talk about because I know quite a few people have been asking about it of late. So thank you, Suzanne. Just quickly, for those of you who don't know Suzanne from before, she has a thriving mediation and arbitration practice and teaches both. She's a consultant at Mills Reeve in London, as well as Carey Olsen in Jersey, and is recognised as a leading individual at both Chambers and Legal 500. She's incredibly knowledgeable on both subjects, so it's my absolute privilege and pleasure to have her back here at Fresh Start. And thank you very much for giving up more of your time. I know that a lot of people really appreciated the arbitration video that we did, and actually if anyone hasn't seen it, then it's still on Fresh Start, so you can go back and watch that at any time. So thank you and welcome on this.
And thank you very much, Nicole. Lovely to be here with you again.
Excellent. So mediation, before we get into the hybrid side of it, just for those who don't know, what is mediation? Just at the very start of the process.
Yeah, mediation is where a mediator effectively tries to facilitate a settlement between a couple. So it can be about anything. It can be about money, it can be about children, it can be about both. But it's the mediator is acting as an independent, neutral person to try and resolve things for the couple. The mediator isn't a judge, isn't an arbitrator, can't impose anything, but they're just there to gently help and facilitate.
Okay. And so the role of the mediator is to stay completely neutral, but not to, as you say, kind of enforce anything as a result of the mediation process.
That's absolutely right. I mean, typically in mediation, both of the clients at some point see a lawyer, so they have independent legal advice either partway through the mediation if the mediator suggests that, or alternatively at the end when they've reached a facilitated settlement, so that their lawyers then sign off on the mediated settlement, and then it goes to court just by way of consent to get a consent order. So it's a really cost-effective and often speedy way of dealing with things for people where there's a great deal of sort of consensus and where they want to discuss things together. I mean, I suppose from my point of view, one of the things that I think I always identify a mediation client when they say things like, I'd like to be able to go to my child's graduation together, or I'd like to go to my grandchildren's christening together. That's very difficult to achieve if you are in litigation, whereas in mediation, much easier.
Yeah, okay. So it really suits those who are trying to be more amicable in the process, or as you say, have a sense of some common ground that they're trying to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have full consensus, nor do you have to be the most amicable couple in the world, because I've done some very tough mediations, but I think there is a sort of self-selection to go into mediation. However, having said that, the government is so keen on mediation, they have said for a number of years now that a couple, in order to issue any form of court proceedings, have to undertake a MIAM, which is a mediation information assessment meeting, so that they can go and see a mediator, discuss mediation and see if it's suitable for them, because the government's really aware of all of the benefits of mediation.
Yeah, I suppose especially as that, and particularly with you guys here on Fresh Start and clients I work with, everybody has children, so everyone has that need to have a relationship post the divorce, which, as you say, if you go through litigation, that relationship's really in tatters. It's very difficult to kind of rebuild what's been damaged along the way, whereas mediation really supports that, as you say, wanting to come together still at family events and that sort of thing. It's interesting as well that the government has kind of put such a focus on it to get people into that process. And you mentioned that it can be quite speedy. What kind of time frames are we talking in terms of mediation?
Well, I think one of the benefits of mediation is you can go at the pace you want to, and this is the pace that both of you want to as a couple. When you're in a court process, you have to go at the pace that is dictated by the court. Whereas in mediation, for some people, they want to deal with things incredibly quickly. And I've got a case at the moment which is about a leave to remove. It's a relocation case, and the parents want to have that determination quite quickly. And so they've asked me to set up mediation appointments over the next 3 weeks so that we can try and get to the end result within 3 weeks. Obviously, you'd never have anything like that in court. The opposite is also true. For some people, they feel as though the court process is too quick and they want to spend more time considering things, and they want to spend more time face to face with an independent person. And so for them, they want to slow down the process. So it works for both.
Yeah, and is it similar to, I know when we talked about arbitration, you were saying you have one person who's kind of looking at your case and understands your case. Presumably it's the same with mediation, the fact that you kind of have that knowledge that someone really understands your personal situation and what you're going through, as opposed to being in a court system where there's, you know, many cases going through.
Yes, and also in court, you rarely have the same judge. You're often swapping between different judges at different hearings. The mediator remains a constant. And in fact, I suppose I should say that some mediators work on their own. I typically work on my own, but I have co-mediated. You can co-mediate, and there might be 2 mediators, either if the situation is pretty complex and it requires 2, or alternatively, in a children case, you might have a lawyer and a non-lawyer mediator working together, co-mediating. That might be, for example, the co-mediator might be a therapist, or it might be maybe a social worker, to work together with the lawyer. And obviously, mediation is normally quite cheap, cost effective, and the two mediators working together will come to an arrangement about what their fee scale is.
Mm-hmm. So you also, so it's similar to arbitration, you would know what the costs are up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I always say to people, a bit like I think I said for arbitration, do a pre-commitment meeting with the mediator. So even if you've got the name of a mediator, have a call with them just to check that you feel comfortable with them, that you feel as though there's the right chemistry, they're the right person to help you. And at that point, talk to them about the time frame that you're looking at, make sure they've got time available in their diary, and also the costs, and ask them what they think the cost estimate is likely to be. And if necessary, put that in writing, because certainty is absolutely crucial in these things.
Yeah, definitely. And I've talked a lot on here, and obviously with my clients as well, about certainty being one of our basic human needs. And it's the thing that everybody struggles with, particularly in this process, because, you know, you don't have a level of certainty around your future, around the process, around what's happening, about what's, you know, the negotiation with the other side, and then all the emotional side as well. So actually, as you say, if you can kind of create that and bake that into the process, you know, your anxiety levels, your ability to hear what the other person's saying, your defenses come down, and then you have much more constructive conversations, because you're taking some of the uncertainty out of the situation. Okay, and then what about sort of hybrid mediation then? So that's kind of the mediation processes. And we should also probably say, because I think a lot of people assume that mediation is kind of around, hey, we have to sit with the other person. But there's obviously shuttle mediation as well, isn't there? Where you know, the mediator moves between the 2 clients, and therefore, you know, you don't, because I think people assume you have to, you know, be friends in order to mediate. And as you quite rightly say, that's not always the case. And actually, it can still be used in quite difficult acrimonious divorces as well.
Yeah, so you can have mediation in lots of different formats. You can have face-to-face mediation, and now quite commonly you have remote mediation. And as you've identified, you can have shuttle mediation where the mediator moves, and again, that can be physically moved from room to room if you're together. Or I'm very good at the breakout room on Zoom now. So as a mediator, I can separate people into breakout rooms, and I can move between the 2 Zoom rooms. The key difference between normal mediation, which I'm going to call classic mediation, and hybrid mediation is that in hybrid mediation, the mediator can hold confidences. So in standard classic mediation, the mediator typically doesn't hold any confidences. So if you say something to the mediator will automatically say it to the other person. However, in hybrid mediation, it is possible that the mediator, you might say something to the mediator, which the mediator will then say, shall I hold on to that and keep that as a confidence, at least for the time being, not for the whole process, but at least for the time being. And I will then come back to you and we'll discuss when I might release that information. When I'm talking here about confidences, it's really important to say it's never going to be something like, I've got a bank account that I don't want you to tell the other person about. It's never going to be about financial disclosure. It's not usually going to be about something like, I'm pregnant and I don't want you to tell my ex-husband. It's more the sort of thing like, if he were to give me another £500,000, I would agree to sell the family home. So it's more about a position. So the mediator understands what the end game might be. And it may be that she or he tests that with the other party. They may go, if they've got the agreement to release that confidence, they may say something like, if you were to give another £500,000, it may be that your wife will agree to the sale of the house. How do you feel about that? Mm-hmm. So it's a really good way of moving a mediation on very successfully. But because you're holding these potential confidences, you have to have good training to become a hybrid mediator. And there's a good training course there, just over a day and a half, to move the model into this basis. Some other things which are a bit different is that typically in hybrid mediation, the lawyers sometimes attend. So the lawyer in standard mediation, classic mediation, often it's just the clients without the lawyers. But in hybrid mediation, I suppose because cases that go to hybrid mediation may be more complex, maybe bigger, maybe more acrimonious, there may be high conflict around, that the lawyers might also attend for at least some of the process. And also because the word hybrid is determining that it's a hybrid model between the civil model of mediation and the family model, often the mediation may be half a day or a day, and you might only have one meeting, whereas in classic mediation you may have somewhere between 3 and 7 1.5 hour sessions.
Okay, so you're getting to that. It really is, speeding up the process. You're getting to that outcome a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Which I guess as well, if you're in classic mediation, then you would sort of take things away and speak to your solicitor. Whereas I guess if you're doing it on the day, then having the solicitors as part of the process makes absolute sense.
Yes, and so I think it's worth thinking about whether or not hybrid mediation is right for you. Perhaps when you have that pre-commitment call with the mediator, you might say, particularly if you've listened to this podcast and you're well informed, is this something that I should consider? I've heard about hybrid mediation. Are you trained to deliver it? What do you think? Is this something that we should be considering in my circumstances?
Okay, and when you're sort of selecting yourself into that process, and what would be kind of your tick list for, who would mostly suit the classic versus who would be better suited to the hybrid, if you were kind of looking at, if a client came to you?
So I think classic is if it's a relatively modest pot of money that you're dividing, if it's not too complicated, if there's a high degree of consensus, if there is some conflict, but it's not off the charts conflict, then that would be classic. Hybrid would be a more complicated case, probably more assets, potentially some issues around division of pensions or tax issues, very complicated finances, and sometimes very high conflict situations around children, perhaps where the children are really feeling the impact of the separation or divorce. Then it may be good to have a hybrid meeting.
Okay. And are there any sort of couples or clients that you would look at and go, absolutely, mediation is not for you?
Yeah, certainly. If someone ever said, I want to hide assets from my spouse, then that needs the proper rigor of the court to determine. I think if someone has disrespect for the other person, if they really couldn't bear any ground rules about behaving appropriately, particularly if you're having face-to-face mediation, but obviously by shuttling, a mediator can take some of the heat out of the situation. So even people who say, I haven't seen my spouse for a long time and I'm a bit nervous about seeing them, there are methods that we can use to make it easier for those clients. So mediation is still appropriate in those circumstances. And as I've said, there's been a lot of research about the benefits of mediation. And that's why the government is so pro mediation and saying, this is what we should be considering. And so there aren't that many cases that I think are automatically ruled out of mediation. I think it's always worth a consideration.
Okay. And you mentioned children, because obviously mediation can be used for children cases as well. Is there any point in which the children will be part of a mediation process?
Yes, you can have child inclusive mediation. And there again, that's a different type of mediator. So you need to check whether or not the mediator is qualified as a child inclusive mediator. And if they are, that's something that you should be considering in certain circumstances, probably in a situation where the child's of an age where they can engage well with a mediator, where they may have their own view that they would like to present, or where you, as separating parents, feel that you don't really understand what their true wishes and feelings are, and you would like them to talk to somebody else to establish that.
Okay. And are there any other professionals that would be involved in that mediation process?
Yes, I mean, I've done mediations with tax experts, for example, particularly where there were questions regarding UK, US tax, where there's accountants or forensic accountants who come into the mediation to talk about the valuation of companies, or, for example, considering how company assets are going to be shared in the future or split, or even providing just a background. Say the company accountant might come in to provide a background of what the company may be worth going forward. So there's all sorts of people and independent financial advisors may come in, therapists may come in. So it's a very inclusive process, and something that I think really enables people to have a very good discussion in a room together if possible.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. That's really, really helpful in sort of understanding the process of both as a classic and hybrid, and the fact that it can be used for, as you said, the financial, but also the children's cases as well, because I think often people have got kind of a misconception around what mediation actually is and what it means. And I know that as well, the fact that you say the government are kind of really pushing for this is, testament to the process as well. How do you find a mediator? Because you've mentioned that there are different mediators that are different types of mediation. You have to check whether someone's qualified to do that particular type of mediation. Where would you go as a client who wanted to kind of look at this process?
So I don't know if you know about Resolution, which is basically the Solicitors Family Law Association. They have a brilliant website, resolution.org, and there's a drop down that says find a mediator, and you put in either the type of mediator you're looking for and or the geographic location, your postcode, and that will come up with the names of potential mediators with their profiles and the sort of work that they offer. Also, the Family Mediators Association, FMA, have a website, and all mediators are listed, not just solicitor mediators. So that's not just lawyer mediators, but non-lawyer mediators, because there are a lot of mediators who are formerly therapists or social workers who also do a great job in terms of mediation. So they're on the FMA website.
Brilliant. That's so helpful. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for coming on and talking to us again about mediation. And as I said, there is also the video on arbitration as well for anyone who missed it, because that's also another option to couples. And Suzanne's outlined, the process there and what's involved and how that can help. I think the thing is, court, as we've said here so many times, is just not the place that you want to end up for you or your family. So, understanding what options are available to you, whether mediation, arbitration, or getting other kind of support outside of the kind of legal process, anything that kind of makes that easier, especially as you have to continue to have a relationship beyond the divorce itself. So thank you very much again for your time. I will share the links with everybody, and also Suzanne's link as well. So if you want to follow up with Suzanne at all, or ask for anything, she does have her own arbitration and mediation practice as well, so you can also get in touch with her. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
And thank you, Nicole, for having me on again. Great to see you.
And you.